We are multiplying matrices together. So if you've ever used matrices before, you know that they're just boxes of numbers, right? They have rows and they have columns. They have rows and they have columns. And we know we can add them up, we can subtract them, and we can also multiply them. So today is going to be all about multiplication. And you can multiply two matrices together. You just need to remember that it's always going to be row by column. So it's always going to be row by column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the first row of the first matrix. And then on the next matrix, I'm going to circle the first column. I'm going to circle the first column. And then I'm going to multiply the row by the column. So here's how I do it. I take the first number, 5, and I multiply it by the first number in the first column, this negative 2. So that's going to be 5 times negative 2. Plus, now I'm going to move on to the second component. I'm going to take this 4 right here, and I'm going to multiply it by this 3. And I'm going to get 4 times 3. So then I simplify a little bit, right? I know that 5 times negative 2 is going to give me negative 10. And I know that 4 times 3 is going to give me 12, right? And then when I add up these two numbers, negative 10 and 12, they're going to add up to give me 2. So my first number is going to be 2. So now I'm done with the first column. I'm done with the first column of this matrix, so I can go ahead and cross it out. And now I move on to the next column, the negative 3 and the 5. So now let's multiply row by column. I'm going to take this first row and I'm going to multiply it by this column. I'm going to have 5 times negative 3, 5 times negative 3, plus 4 times 5, 4 times 5. So now I multiply the two numbers together. 5 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 15. 4 times 5, that's going to give me 20. And then when I add up these two numbers, I'm going to get 5. So that's going to be my second number up here, 5. So now I'm done with this column, and I can go ahead and mark it out. So now I'm done with all the columns. We say that when we're done with all the columns, we've exhausted all the columns. So now we're done with this row, and we can move on to the next row. So I'm going to circle the next row in red, and then we're going to do the same thing with this row. We're going to multiply it by each column. So let me go ahead and erase this and get ready for the next row. And I'll erase this too so I can get it ready for the next row. Alright, so in the bottom row I have 1 and 2. In the first column I have negative 2 and 3. So let's multiply those together. I'm going to have 1 times negative 2, 1 times negative 2, plus 2 times 3, 2 times 3. So now when I multiply these, I get negative 2 and 6. When I add these up, 6 plus negative 2, that's going to give me positive 4. So I take this 4 and I put it down here in my second row. Alright, so now I'm done with the first column and I move on to the last column. So now I've got the last row being multiplied by the last column. This 1, 2, and this negative 3, 5. So now let's multiply these. I get 1 times negative 3 plus 2 times 5. When I multiply these, I get negative 3. If I multiply these, I get 10. And then once I add up, I have 7. So that's going to be the last number in my matrix. And we're done. So notice when we multiply a 2 by 2 and we multiply a 2 by 2, this is also going to be a 2 by 2. So why is that? Well, typically when we multiply, we're always multiplying row by column. And we know that this has 2 rows, so we know that it has 2 rows, but we know it also has 2 columns, right? So that's what makes it a 2 by 2. This matrix is also a 2 by 2, so this is also a 2 by 2. And then our answer is going to be a 2 by 2. So whenever you multiply matrices together, what you always want to make sure of before you get started, and I kind of got started before thinking about this, but your inside numbers have to match up. So this inside number and this inside number, these two have to match up. They must match, or you're not going to get an answer. And then if they do match, you take the outside numbers, these outside numbers right here, this 2 and this 2, and you put those together to get the dimensions of your answer. So that's why when you multiply 2 with the 2 by 2's, you get a 2 by 2. So that's matrix multiplication. I hope that helps. All you're doing is you're multiplying rows by columns.